we're going to get started, but before we jump into the PowerPoint and looking at tools, I just want to, again, thank everyone for joining us today. This is an hour-long webinar about using the toolkits, and we want to focus on how the toolkits can help you generate media relations. I want to point out that there's a chat box. I will be monitoring the chat box. You can ask any questions throughout the presentation. We will, at the end, also invite questions and make sure that we've answered every question. At the end of the PowerPoint, you'll see the last slide has contact information for me. This is Michelle Weber, and then Carissa and Anna. So you'll have time even after this to ask follow-up questions as they occur to you. Carissa Poroko is going to deliver the presentation today. I'll be in charge of the PowerPoint and watching the chat. So with that, Carissa, you want to get us started?
All of the different tools that are available this year to help get the word out about National Public Lands Day, which is coming up very quickly. So the timing for this presentation is perfect. I think everyone's heads are starting to turn more and more toward National Public Lands Day. I know we have been thinking about it and planning for it all year, and so we're very much looking forward to kind of bringing you all along on our campaign here to help spread the word. As everyone knows, it's the 20th anniversary this year, so we have a lot to talk about. And just to give you a little background about myself, I'm, again, Carissa Poroko, and Michelle Weber and I are with Tricom Associates, and we have been helping promote National Public Lands Day for several years, on different levels through Tricom and with NEAF. We have worked, to do the PR on the national level and the long lead magazines. Some of the work that you see, the articles where you see mentions of National Public Lands Day in the news. That's kind of some of what we've been focusing on. We've also been doing some of the webinars this year. It's kind of new to us in terms of the webinars, but we certainly have been involved, and we're happy to be involved with you today. So just to give you a rundown of what this webinar will cover, we're going to kind of run through what we've been doing on the national level and around the country to kind of push the word about National Public Lands Day out there so that it hopefully makes it easier for you all to then promote it on the local level and kind of tie into our plans, our big picture national plans. We're also going to give you some basics, PR 101, kind of how-tos for contacting reporters. Michelle and I have both been doing PR for almost 20 years, so we've worked a lot on big campaigns, small campaigns, campaigns at the local level, big markets, small markets. We have a lot of experience and can kind of fit our answers to your specific situation, so definitely ask questions if you're thinking through how to promote National Public Lands Day through the media. We're also going to give you kind of some of the tools we've been using, which you can certainly use if you haven't already, and you should be using on the local level, specifically some creative ideas around the 20th anniversary, which we're tying into this year, and we've seen some success, and we hope that you will too. And then we're going to walk you through some of the resources that you have through NEAF and through the National Public Lands Day website and the promotional materials that are available to you. So, just to kind of give you a run through of what we have been doing up until now, we really have been focusing on those long leads that I mentioned, some of the national and local magazines that have a longer lead time. And we've been doing that by kind of focusing on their specific area. So if it's an outdoor magazine, obviously the story fits well there, or if it's a youth magazine or a magazine geared toward the elderly, how are those different kinds of volunteers getting involved? And then, of course, the 20th anniversary, which we're tying in as kind of a story hook. So we will kind of give you those creative spins that we've been using. And, we're really getting ready now to go out in key markets with PSA pitching. There will be a PSA in many of your markets that's helping promote National Public Lands Day, and we're also getting ready to kind of get into the more short-term media outreach, which is radio in key markets. We'll be using a NEAF spokesperson to do radio interviews around the country. We'll be working on specific events that certain sites are doing, for example, in Atlanta, and kind of getting into more of that short-term pitching also on the national level. So we will keep everyone updated on what we're doing nationally so that you can hopefully feed into that. Oftentimes, if there is a national story, you can kind of use that to help promote your specific story on the local level too. So we can move forward to some of the how-tos, and one of the biggest resources that NEAF has developed for you as site managers is the toolkit, and we are also here to kind of walk you through a lot of different options for you to kind of help garner media attention around your National Public Lands Day event. And we realize everyone will have a little bit of a different setup. Not everyone's going to have an opening ceremony or speakers or photographers on site, but these are some of the options for you and some things to think about to help create a media event, even if it's not a press conference that you have planned where you're inviting reporters to attend because you have speakers and in a formal agenda. Even just, inviting media to come out and see your volunteers at work, it's a great visual. And we're going to walk through today, those key elements that you need in order to give the media what they need to do a story. And here are a few things just to think about if you haven't thought about doing an opening ceremony. Sometimes that can be enough to get media there, using speakers, having a photographer on site so that you can send photos, that day or the next day to local media. If you're going to have some of these things, you may want to think about the audiovisual needs and kind of, creating a visual and having everything set up the right way for your event. You want to think through the speakers, have an agenda ready. You want to plan if you're having no speakers and ceremonies, then you want to plan for that too, and instead invite media to come and see your volunteers at work, which is definitely enough. It's a visual that tells the story that we want to tell, and your press release and your pitch can help do that. So we will walk you through that as well.
For media, and when we talk about speakers, media are often interested in public officials, so even if a local representative or a public official on a smaller level is there helping with your event, that's a great way to draw the media to your event. And again, if you're not having speakers, think about the visual that might bring media to an event. For example, a bunch of firefighters or a bunch of school children. Those are the kinds of things that the media would probably want to cover, or at least be interested in and consider.
Some tactical tips just to run through with you. If you are having an opening ceremony, you want to confirm your list of participants. You want to make sure that they're available and that it's on their calendars for that day. You want to scout your site ahead of time to look for the most logical places for the speakers to stand. You want to pick the best visual. Your background should be the park or the volunteers at work, so that media that do attend get the visual they need and they get the speakers all in one place. Visual is really the most important thing for TV media, obviously, and then for print, and they may send their own photographer or they may take photos from you. So visual is very important there. You also want to make sure you have all the right permits, all the the approval that you need from the owners, and make sure it's okay schedule-wise. You want to determine if your speakers have any special audiovisual needs, if they have the right power sources. Think through, ahead of time what the background noise level might be. You also want to think through your logistical arrangements. You want to create a logo, for example, if you have a podium, so that there's a visual on the front of the podium. You want to make sure you have a podium if you are having a formal ceremony and formal agenda with speakers. You want to measure the appropriate space that you might need for the podium. Some of those technical things are things that you might not think about ahead of time, but a lot of those details can help make your event successful. Bringing along tape for your sign, bringing along tape for your wires so that they're not loose and people are walking over them, determining whether or not you might need chairs. All of those little nuances that will make the event run smoothly. Food and drink is always a good thing to remember. It makes everybody happy, especially volunteers, I'm sure. And ordering a table ahead of time for the food and drink, and then for media materials. If you have a press release that you want to hand out in a press kit, it's always great to have them set on a table with a sign-in sheet for media. And again, not everyone needs to do all of these things, but these are just some of the things that you can think through if you're going to have a formal ceremony. Another thing to think about is rain check plans. If there is going to be weather, you might need to have a tent on hand. And parking is another important thing to think through and plan accordingly for. Working with your speakers is also really important, just to confirm details with them so they all know when and where they should be, including the order in which they're going to be up on stage in. It's always important to make sure they know in case you're busy doing something else and you can't kind of direct them, then let's just make sure that they know when they're supposed to be up there and who they're following. Also, the messages that you'd like them to cover, it's always important to go through that in advance. Providing them with message points is a really good idea just to help them and make their job easier. An agenda also helps everyone. We oftentimes at our events will hand all the speakers the agenda with cell phone numbers, just so everyone has everyone else's contact information, just in case there's an issue that day and someone needs to get a hold of someone else. You also want to make sure your podium is there nice and early. Again, you want to make sure that visual is what you want, and that's behind it and in front of it, with your logo in front and your backdrop behind. When you get there that day, you want to make sure to check your sound right away. You want to look at the speaking schedule with the speakers right away, and then think through. If you're not going to have any formal speakers, you want to make sure that there is a spokesperson on hand for media. The speakers are the natural spokesperson for media, but if there isn't a formal speaker, then a volunteer could be a spokesperson for media, and yourself as a representative of the organization and an organizer. You always want to make sure that the spokesperson knows well in advance, so that they're, number one, available, and number two, prepared and kind of calm and collected, and have, again, their message points in front of them. Sometimes we don't know for sure if media are going to attend and if we're going to have to do interviews, but a lot of times if we're doing some pitching and pre-phone calls, we know, who's going to attend, and we then can line up a spokesperson for them. And that spokesperson should have an idea of what the questions are going to be, if possible. You want to ask those in advance so that spokesperson can be prepared. I think that's everything on my end.
So I just wanted to refer back to the poll, and I wasn't going to share it. As I said, it was for us to get some insight on a couple of things that are important. Working with the media, and do you have a media list? And it looks like a lot of people have worked with the media. There are a couple that have not. And then a lot of you, well, actually, it's about half and half in terms of having a media list and not having a media list. So the first point in this next slide, I want to spend some time talking through media lists. There are resources that you have to pay for to generate a media list, and I am fairly certain many of you or all of you don't have that resource. But there's a really fairly easy way to build a media list, and that's just really Googling. So whatever the name of your town or city, just Google, print media in, and then name the town or city, and you can generally find, the resources that are available. It does take a little bit of extra time because you'll not get a list of reporters, but you'll have to go to the media outlet, maybe call the main number, and start building your list from there. What I do recommend is if you don't have a media list, create one. It will be your best friend for this event and for events in the future, and it gives you a base to start from. So, again, Googling, print media in and the name of the town, radio stations in, and so on for TV. So that, Carissa, unless you have more to say about that, I really do encourage.
I'll just add, that when you're Googling, you're going to get the outlet, which is, going to be a general contact. So that's the first step, but you really need to make a phone call and then ask for the specific, either the reporter who covers the angle that you're trying to promote. So, it might be lifestyle or outdoor. It might be youth. It might be nonprofit. Depending on your story angle, there will be a specific reporter. Sometimes you do just go to the general editor, but even that contact will not come up when you're Googling. You'll get the main number to the media outlet, so you always want to ask then for an editor or the news desk to start, and then at that point when you get directed to the news desk, you can then ask for the specific reporter who might cover your story.
We're going to jump over to the template media advisory, and it's a template meant for everyone to use and really plug in your local information and send it out.
This is also in the toolkit on the resource site for site managers.
So this is the piece that you would send several weeks out. It can also be used as a calendar listing template. So at the top you would put calendar listing in bold, all caps, and that's if you are going, a lot of media outlets have a calendar listing editor or just a person at the outlet that handles calendar listings. For print, there's more likely to be a calendar editor. For radio and TV, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but those would appear on their websites. And for TV, they may even appear in a calendar that they might show after the local news or something like that, or after weekend public affairs show. So, Carissa, do you want to add more about what this piece is used for?
Sure. It's you oftentimes hear about the 5 W's in media relations: the who, what, when, where, and why. And those really are the key elements that reporters are looking to find out about it, and that's all. They don't like a lot of extra information. So especially in a media advisory, which is again meant to generate the coverage before the event. It's meant to send out the very basic information to gain reporters' interest so that they then can cover the story. So you want to just make sure you've got all of the contact information. You've got a media contact with a cell phone number. You want to make sure you have the event details, that where, the address, the date, the time, the name of your speakers if you have them, and any of other of those, those very critical details. If there's some sort of direction about how to get to the site, et cetera, et cetera. And then you also want to make sure you send out the advisory ahead of time because it is meant to generate interest before the event so that medias attend the event. You would hand out a longer press release at the event that kind of is supposed to become the story that you want to be printed. So you write it as though it is the story in the news that you want to see. So, a good day might be, the Monday, September 16th, to send out the press advisory. That's a little bit in advance, and sometimes media don't like it too far in advance, so you might want to resend it a few days later. Don't be afraid to send it more than once. And then you also want to have the press release available at the event. As we mentioned, you might want to have a stack of them on a table or within a press kit. You also want to, if you do a press kit, include fact sheets and background sheets. You can find those on our website. You want to include background on your organization as well as National Public Lands Day. You also want the agenda with your speakers, just so the media can follow who is going to be speaking when, and then they have the name and the title and the organization in front of them if they're going to interview and quote one of your speakers. You'll see here the Media Kit resources link in the PowerPoint. That's got a lot of resources and tools for you that you'll find useful at your event and on your National Public Lands Day.
I just wanted to jump over to the press release templates just so everyone can take a look at that. When we did one of our earlier webinars, there was a question about what does an advisory look like? What does a press release look like? And we wanted to make sure to address that here. These are the resources and many, many more that are in the toolkit. But these are some critical pieces that are available to you. So there's not much to say about this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But again, this is what you have at your event. You fill in the information that localizes it. We haven't said that too much, but I can't say it enough. Making your story local, having a quote from someone who's going to be at the event is a great idea. If it's higher up and they're not going to be at the event, but what they have to say is important, then that works too. This is a good tool. The other thing I wanted to jump over before I go back to the PowerPoint is a sample pitch. In the toolkit, you might see something that looks a little more formal, like a pitch letter. The most efficient way for pitching the media these days, and I'm sure all of you know this already, is just emailing reporters and letting them know this event is happening, here's what we're doing, this is really cool and why. So here are a couple of sample pitches. The first one has a youth focus, and the second one has a I'm not sure where our second one went. I'm sorry.
Michelle, I think if you scroll down, is it not available?
It's not. The second one is similar, but it had a travel focus. If anyone's interested in seeing that pitch, if you don't mind, send me a chat and with your email, and I'll be sure to send it to you. But really, the most important thing that you need to know about emailing your pitch is that the very first few sentences are really to the point and what you're doing, and then as you go down in the pitch, you can include other information, but you have that first paragraph, that first section to grab the interest of the reporter. If it's not very punchy, interesting, unique, different, they're probably going to trash it before they've looked at anything else that you've sent them. So remember not to bury the most interesting aspects of your event. What we like to do in our pitches also is to give them a couple different angles, different ways to think or approach the story. So that's what we've done here. I want to remind everyone to use the chat if you have any questions. I'm going to jump back over to the PowerPoint and just point out right here the last bullet is a link to the resource page. We'll make sure to walk you through that toward the end of this presentation, and we'll move on.
This is a basic understanding of how media covers their story, the difference between print and electronic, which is also, TV, radio, broadcast media. And it's pretty easy to understand that print reporters are going to want to get more in depth than a broadcast reporter because they just have obviously a lot more time. You are not on the air. You're not trying to fit the story within a 2-minute window. So you want to really approach media in the way that they need to approach the story. They will appreciate you much more if you can think in terms of how they need to think. So if you're talking to a TV reporter, you want to think about the visual that they are trying to get because they need to tell their story through that visual. And same can be said for a radio reporter. They need the sound. It might be, the sound of crunching leaves as the volunteers are walking through the park, the sound of them talking to each other about different ways that they're, that they're beautifying the park. The sound for a radio reporter is just as important as the visual for TV, and then for print, they're looking for the details through the voices of your volunteers, of you as a coordinator. They really need to tell that story through the quotes that you see throughout the article. The print media also work on a much longer deadline typically than broadcast, and that means that they can plan in ahead to get there. You could approach them a few days before you might approach a broadcast media because they're thinking about it beforehand. Broadcast media really work on a tighter deadline, and they're thinking about just that day or the next day typically and what they're covering that day. Print media have a lot more flexibility. Broadcast media are kind of they're sort of locked into the news of the day. Breaking news oftentimes can bump a story, and they never know exactly when breaking news is going to break. So they're really kind of looking for the style that's going to be what's going to tell the story they're trying to tell, whereas the print media is looking for the details and less of a visual.
Along the lines of print and their longer deadlines, keep in mind that community newspapers, while they're a great way to get coverage, their deadlines are a little shorter in the sense that they only run once a week. So even sometime around now is a good time to think about what community papers might you want to go out to and start making some of those connections early. They have really small staffs, and sometimes if you wait too long, they'll just say, we don't have anyone to cover it. That was a great story. We wish we had known earlier. If you do get that response, offer up post-event photos or send them the press release. Oftentimes, community newspapers will run what you send them. So don't take that as a no and we lost our chance. Push back a little bit and see if there's another way to get the coverage that you're looking for. For radio, I want to point out community affairs and public affairs programs that often run on weekends. So I'll give you an example. Rock and roll stations, you turn on the station on a Monday through Friday, they don't have any kind of a talk show whatsoever, but on the weekend they might have a dedicated community affairs program. That's a great chance for your local spokesperson to go into the station or by phone and talk about why National Public Lands Day is so important and what you guys are doing and inviting people to come and check it out.
Okay, so again, when you're calling a specific media outlet, you are going to ask for a specific contact based on who you're calling. If you're calling a newspaper, you want the editor. You may want a calendar listing editor if you're just trying to get the word out, the details out about the event on the website or in the paper, in the community calendar section. If you get through to a city desk, you can then kind of give them your pitch, and they may also direct you to the appropriate person. So when you're calling, and you know, sometimes you don't always know exactly who is going to bite. So you would ask for, you know, an editor at the city desk. Give them your pitch that you've practiced, and so you feel really good about it. And we'll kind of get to that next, but. And they can then direct you to the right reporter. You can also ask for a feature editor if you're looking for more of kind of that lifestyle type story. At television stations, you want to go to either the planning desk or the news desk, depending on when you're calling. Typically, a news desk will not talk to you unless it's the day of. Even if it's one day before your event, they're going to send you to planning because they don't think that far ahead. They're really just planning the news of the day on the day because that breaking news element can always come in and change everything. So if you're calling ahead of time, go to the planning desk. The planning editor then may direct you to a specific reporter. You then can call back if you haven't kind of locked in with a specific reporter through the planning desk. Feel free to call back and go to the assignment desk or the news desk. That's the same thing. You can try the day before, but really the morning of is when they're going to give you the most attention. And then for radio, they also have kind of two different contacts depending on your timing. If you're calling a couple weeks ahead of time, you can go to producers who are producing the weekend community affairs talk shows. They oftentimes will pick an issue and cover it at length. This is a much different interview than if you go through the news desk and you're doing a shorter news story on the radio that you hear in the news of the day. If you're trying to get to a community affairs producer, you want to call about 2 weeks in advance, and you can ask who that producer is, and sometimes you can find out online on the station's website. Radio stations are very good about putting contacts on their station's website. And if you're going to the the news desk, you just want to ask for, the news director, and whoever answers the desk that day is handling assignments. You want to really pitch a quick, newsy pitch if you're going to the news director with those basic details right up front. What we're doing a lot is talking about how it's the 20th anniversary, how it's a good fall volunteer event for people who want to get outdoors and lend a hand to save our lands, help save our lands. We're kind of describing the sounds, that a reporter might get or the visuals that they might get. And you want to do all of that up front because that will sort of tell the story for you quickly in their terms. Another good idea is to practice a pitch, kind of put it down on paper as a script, and just practice it before you pick up the phone. This is really important. It's something that we still do. We've been doing this for years, and we still do it because you want to make sure you fit in all those details, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You also want to make sure you fit in your message. Talking points are a very good idea to have and to kind of work into that script. And then, if you don't succeed with the first call you make, don't be afraid to kind of try a different angle or a different reporter if you can think creatively, move around the newsroom a little bit, particularly at a newspaper. You have a chance to go through that lifestyle editor. If that doesn't work, try the city editor. If that doesn't work, try a reporter directly. Try a nonprofit reporter or a youth reporter, depending on how what angle your story is and who your volunteers are. And then also, remember to follow up. Media are not great about getting back to you. Unfortunately, they are inundated with emails, calls all day long, and they're used to people following up with them. So don't be afraid to call them back and follow up and remind them, that you had a conversation, that they seem interested. Follow up with an email if you spoke on the phone, and just kind of make sure to sort of make their job easier by reminding them gently. You don't want to come across too pushy, because sometimes they kind of don't like more of a, if you're coming across salesy, they don't really like the self-serving push. But as a nonprofit for such a great cause, you should have no problem, just being excited about your event and the cause and the fact that it's the 20th anniversary, and just speak sincerely. And if you're excited about it and that comes through in your pitch, then you're more likely to get them excited about it.
Following the event, you're going to get media placements, and what we want to make sure is you track the placements for yourselves, but also for NEAF, because we'll want to see what great coverage you guys have, and we'll want to share that through social media and our websites and other avenues. So as you move along promoting what you have going on, do the Google search and see if the placement shows up, or if you've worked closely with the reporter, you can always go back to that reporter and say, hey, can you send me a link to the story, or which day is it going to run, and then share that with us, because we want to see the great work that you guys are doing as well.
Some other things to remember on your end in terms of coordinating is making sure someone is assigned to greeting media who show up. Someone who might be able to kind of keep a lookout. You may have an idea if you've made a round of calls the morning of to kind of remind reporters, follow up with reporters, find out if they are planning to send a truck. You can say, I want to know if you're planning to send a truck so we can look out for you, so we can have a spokesperson available and ready for you. Then you want to have someone who is assigned to looking for those media, especially if they confirm. If they confirm and they don't show up, don't be afraid to call them back and find out if they're lost. Sometimes they're late or lost, and you can kind of secure the opportunity if you are proactive about actually getting them there. We've actually had success by getting extremely creative. There have been media events that we've had media that they were trying to get there to cover the event, but they got lost and couldn't make it. So we ended up taking notes for them and sending them the notes so that they can then do the story. Your job is to make their job easier. So remember that on the day of, because you never know what might come up. In terms of making calls, you want to make your calls the week leading up to your event, but then you definitely want to make calls, a round of calls the morning of. For print, especially because this is a weekend, they will have most likely already assigned it or not assigned it, but they do have weekend desks and there are oftentimes different people working on the weekends than the people answering the phones during the week. Same thing with broadcasts. So, you may be speaking to someone who knows nothing about your story because they are the weekend person. We have called the weekend prior to the event, if it is on a weekend day, so that we're sure to get the weekend people. And we've had success doing it that way. So that's something to think about as well. And then, you want to just make that round of calls the morning of, and you also want to hit photography editors at the print outlets because sometimes they will just send a photographer and not a reporter. And, a great photo, which we know we have good visuals, a great photo with a good caption underneath it sometimes tells the story in just enough words. So that's also something not to leave off your list is photographers, and that's just a photo desk. You want to, if you can, make a media sign-in sheet, just so media who get there will put their name, their outlet, their phone number, their email. That way, if there's any follow-up that needs to be done after, you have their contact information, and so that you can follow up for next year. Even just knowing who was there this year will help you for next year. So it's just a simple sign-in sheet. You can do that electronically or you can do it by hand if that's easier. Media are accustomed to signing in when they get to an event, so they'll be looking for that. Near the press kit most likely is where you want to have that. You then also want to make sure that you have those media kits on a table with all the other materials, on your organization. On NEAF, you want to have someone at that table at all times to answer questions, to come and grab a spokesperson. This can be the person that you've assigned to kind of look out for media, to be that greeter. Just someone who they know is there for them to help them coordinate. You also want to make sure that they send them away with a press kit so they have your press release, even if it's just a photographer. They're going to take that back to their office, and they're going to have to, type in the details, and it's much easier for them, and you can ensure that they get those details right if they've got it in front of them on paper. You also want to give them a contact, and you can do this via the press release. The contact person on the press release is someone that they can follow up with. They may have follow-up questions, and they need to probably get a quick answer based on their deadline. So they might be calling you that day just to fact check. Oftentimes you'll get a call from a fact checker just to check, make sure they have those details right. And then after your event, you can send a press release to media who didn't attend. So if you know someone was interested and you'd only sent them the advisory, you can send them the full press release, say, we're sorry you didn't make it. Here's the full details. If you would like to still do a story, we'd be happy to provide someone on the phone to do an interview to give you a quote. We'd be happy to do an interview at the studio if it's TV, or on location, a one-on-one interview if they couldn't make the actual event, or if there was a ceremony, you can set it up later. And you can also send photos, and sometimes TV will even use photos if they couldn't get a cameraman to your event. Don't be afraid to follow up with a phone call later in the day, too. Staff changes. Like I said, you have weekend staff at the desk in the morning, and they will change shifts in the afternoon. And we all know that a lot of your volunteer events are going all day, and sometimes into the next several days. So don't be afraid to follow up later in the day, and then the beginning of the next week, especially for some of those community papers, as Michelle mentioned, they're weekly. And so if you didn't make it in prior to the event, you still have some time before their deadline for the next issue that's coming out. So you want to follow up with them, as late as Tuesday or Wednesday after the event. You can make those follow-up calls, send those photos, and try to get your story. After about, Wednesday or Thursday, you may be too late. So definitely, make it a priority early in the week.
Are we ready to move on? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really just a reminder. There was a webinar back in July about social media. So we just want to remind everyone, use your social media to reach out to your audiences, grab some new ones as well, take lots of photos, and post them, tweet them. Just let people know what you're doing. They will share it with their friends. Take some fun photos and even some silly ones. We all know that the photos, they definitely help tell your story so easily.
And just remember, there are tips and messages for Facebook and Twitter available to you in the toolkit.
So as you're all planning or have planned your events, we want to make sure that this being the 20th year is a highlight of your messages and your planning. So here are just some things to keep in mind and some ideas for you to think about as you move along and as we all get closer to this year's National Public Lands Day. A special volunteer. I was on the phone with a gentleman who has volunteered for National Public Lands Day for more than 10 years for sure, and it's a park that he went to as a young kid. He has his own kids and now grandkids, so that gives you a sense of his commitment to the park. And I ended up talking to another person who is just as involved in the same park. So there are certain areas where the parks actually are, their stomping grounds, their playground, and it's really a place for family and amazing memories. So, for some of your longer lasting volunteers who've been around for such a while helping you out, maybe, recognizing them, and that's a great media story in and of itself. So there are a lot of creative ways to get media attention, and that's also a great post-event opportunity as well. We've already talked about opening and closing ceremony. This can be a great way to highlight, again, a volunteer that you want to highlight or a public official who's been especially kind to the park or to your area, getting people out into the park. Maybe you break up your event with a nature hike or some other activity, a birthday cake to celebrate. T-shirts are a great thing, and other things to think about, baseball caps. Lots of giveaway things to make your event special and to draw in the public. The more people that you have, the more you can talk it up with the media. We've got hundreds of people coming out for this event, and here's what we're going to do, and we're going to have a birthday cake, and all pile on the special things that you're doing as you pitch to the media.
Yeah, and that helps just describe that visual that they're going to see, and think about it in those terms, which is a great idea. We've also used a resource that's available to all of you with some success, and that's the blog posts that are available on the resources page. The 20 stories for 20 years, those blogs are each focusing on, a topic that appeals to a certain reporter. Many of them talk about different parks and what's available at the parks. Some of them, would focus on more child-friendly activities available at the parks. So, for example, if your group is a youth group and you're, approaching reporters that cover youth issues, you can use that blog for content. You can give that to them to add to their website just as an extra resource that's linked to your story. The endangered species, 20 endangered species that are found at public parks. That's a story that environmental reporters might be interested in, and you can kind of use that as a sidebar type information if that's the kind of topic that you're also trying to go for. So those resources are available to you, along with the fact sheets and background information that you can kind of use as you see appropriate.
I want to hand controls back over to Anna with NEAF, and she's going to take us through the promotional materials that are available. Anna, are you
I am. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. Now, if you give me just a moment, I'm going to set up our browser to share. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. And going to show our web page, our home page. So at this point, everyone should be able to see the National Public Lands Day website's home page. So if not, Michelle, has everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And just to let everyone know, I'm sure that you may have questions as I go through this. I'm not able to see the chat box as I present the website, so if I don't get to your questions right away, I'll be sure to answer them quickly. So here we are at the homepage for NPLD. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. After years and years of practice, just to give you kind of a brief summary, we have our news and highlights section here, our ever-important register a site tab, find a site, NPLD near you, and resources. So this is our big section, which will pertain to everyone here on this call. So a few things we have contests. This will actually serve to highlight our photo and video contests, which we will update with new deadlines. We're very fortunate to be working with REI on our photo and video contest this year, and you can read about 2012's prizes and also the finalists on this site. Educational resources, grants and awards, I'll come back to that in a few moments. The Let's Move initiative, proclamations. I will click on promotional materials because I did get one question, and this is a little tricky. I'll try this one more time. I will scroll over promotional materials. Now, as you all will see, the promotional materials option is highlighted, but underneath it, a new window pops up. Now, this window is actually where you can click to download all of our logos. So I'll just do that one more time. So promotional materials are here. Usually this goes away. There we go. And then it pops back up. So I'll click on this. And this has all of the logos that are available for download in JPEG, PNG files. You have a variety of options to choose from. You can certainly use these on your press releases, any promotional materials that you produce. We do strongly suggest that you use the NPLD logo just to tie the event back to the National Environmental Education Foundation and to National Public Lands Day. Would be fantastic. So this is where you're able to find all of your downloadable logos. And if for any reason the resolution is not up to what you need, or you need a separate file version, please feel free to contact us and let us know. We're more than happy to help you with anything that you need. Alrighty. And if I'm going too fast, someone flag me down. All right, and then the next item on our promotional materials, so we have a few items that are available for download. When you register your site, everyone should have the ability to enter to receive free promotional items. You have rack cards and posters. Now, for those of you who are interested in either downloading versions of the poster, you're able to do that on the website. We give you an image of the rack card as well, and also the posters. So the great thing about the poster, you can see an image of the poster. This is our generic poster that we send out to all of our sites. But a great option that you have is you're actually able to download an editable version of the poster. So this blank space down here is actually where you can enter specific text that pertains to your NPLD event. So you're able to promote your event kind of using this field as well. So that's a very exciting tool to have. And then let's see what else. So we also have our social media all of our links to Twitter and Facebook and Flickr, YouTube account, where you can actually view not only this webinar once we get it posted, but previous PSAs, educational resources as well, and our new Instagram account, which is quite exciting. We are the cool kids. The next item that we have, we will be issuing our 2013 public service announcements soon, but when we do, this is the page where you will find it, and you'll actually see 2012's public service announcements as well. So once we get the 2013 versions upload, you will be available to view both the 60-second and 30-second versions of our PSA as well as audio clips, and find out more information about those, and feel free to use those in your outreach. All right, now the biggie, site manager resources. So this is pretty much where we have all of our material available for you to access that we've been uploading throughout kind of preparations for NPLD. You'll see our announcement for our latest webinar, and this is sadly the last webinar in our series. We did have 3. The social media webinar that was hosted on July 24th, that webinar is available to view. You can view that at any time. It's available on our YouTube channel. I'll just click on this really quickly, and you can actually view it right on our website as well. We will not care wherever you view it, just as long as you watch it. We also had our 2013 webinar schedule, which we keep current now. Okay. Here is our media kit for site managers. I realized from seeing the poll results that everyone, I think a pretty hefty portion of the participants in today's webinar have at least seen the media kit. And one thing we did not want to do in this webinar is have it serve as sort of a college lecture where we upload the media kit and go through each page by page by page ad nauseum. We just wanted to hit the highlights for you. But you have the entire media kit available to download. We also have the specific documents that we highlighted in today's webinar that you can use if you don't want to use the entire kit, which I think you do because it's a very important document to have. But we have the highlighted sections, the media advisory, the pitch emails, and the press release available for you to download. We also have our June 26th webinar available, volunteer appreciation certificates, the manual for site managers, and that really serves to help anyone who is just interested in hosting an NPLD event. They read about it and they stand there and they go, well, what do we do next? That's the manual that you want to look at to see how you will plan your NPLD event. And then we even have, from previous years, webinars as well, and certificates for Boys and Girl Scouts, volunteer appreciation certificates. So really a lot of information available to you. And, you know, if you, in all of our free time that I'm sure we have leading up to the event, please take time to just cruise our website and look at all of the great resources that we have available. This is our specific NPLD 20 section, which talks about our anniversary celebration. This is where we will actually view the blog postings, 20 stories for 20 years on NPLD. We can click on that, which are very fun 20th anniversary specific posts that we will upload every single month. So in addition to that, let's see, what else do I want to show you today? I think that's pretty much it on the website, unless Carissa and Michelle, if you have anything that you think...
I would just point out the press releases right where you are there.
Yeah.
That's where you can find those.
Yeah, so press releases from previous years, and again, we'll upload these press releases as soon as we issue them for this year. We'll also have old newsletter copies as well available, news and highlights section. You know, everything we just announced, our everyday capacity building grantees, which we would love to have you read about if any of your organizations are interested in applying to any of our funding and resources that we have available. That's a whole separate webinar, but you can read about it on our news and highlights section, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions on that front as well. And I think that's about it. And of course, I will point out again where you go to register a site, right here. If any of you have not yet registered, please feel free to do so.
And to receive the promotional materials, you must register your site.
Yes. Thank you for, since we have the site, the promotional materials available online, you are able to download them. But the hard copy versions that we mail out to everyone, you do need to register your site to receive the mailing versions. And I should let you know that our deadline to receive mailed promotional materials before National Public Lands Day is August 30th to register your site. So that is the next deadline that we have coming up. So please let us know if you have questions about site registration or encounter any errors or problems. We are here to help you. Alrighty. And I think...
Anna, you want to take it to the next slide?
Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything. Again, register your site. Very, very subtle emphasis on site registration. We're pushing very hard this August to make sure that everybody gets the access to our elevated PR and media outreach for the 20th anniversary event as well. So the earlier you register, the earlier we're able to promote your events.
For pitching, I mean, you're part of such a big effort, and that can sometimes be interesting to reporters. While they want the local, to say that, you know, hundreds of other parks around the whole country are doing park improvement projects and different activities to preserve our public lands, you know, it's also happening in other places, and here's what's happening locally. It helps give perspective. So that's just another thing to keep in mind, that, you know, when you register your site, you're just part of a much bigger effort, a bigger day, and that should be mentioned. Any questions? I've been checking the chat. I don't think that I've missed any. But if anyone has any last-minute questions, now would be a good time to submit that in the chat. If you think you need to think about all of this and digest it a little bit, on the next slide will be our contact information.
Yep.
And you should feel free to email any of us. You can call me. This is Michelle Weber, so that's my phone number. And we'll be happy to talk through your ideas, your challenges. If you've got an idea and you're not sure how to pitch it to the media, or if you are pitching the media and you think it's a really great story and they're not biting and you just want to get some, you know, other thoughts, feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We're just a couple minutes over the top of the hour. I don't have anything else to add. Anna or Carissa, anyone else? Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope that you thought this time was helpful, useful. Remember that toolkit is there for you, really to make your outreach efforts easy with those templates and with the tools and some of the, you know, the how-tos. So again, spend some time looking through the toolkit if you haven't already, and that's it.
All right, well, thank you all so much for participating today. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all of the success in leading up to the 20th anniversary of NPLD, and we look forward to hearing all of your success stories on parks and forests, estuaries around the country. So thank you so much.